Ramco presents the MAT Aerator, a patented aeration device providing maximum air transfer. Designed and engineered by Dick Franklin, president of Ramco Incorporated. With Dick is Mr. Bob Yada, in charge of civil engineering at the Fort Chaffee Air Force Base in Arkansas. Fort Chaffee faced an emergency. Housing provided for refugees relocated from Florida created an impossible demand on the wastewater treatment facility. The Hindy Air Aqua system had failed. Air lines were plugged up, the blowers wouldn't work properly, fish were dying. Ramco was asked for a solution to the problem. We engineered a complete system and in 15 days installed 210 MAT units. Especially designed for this setup were flexible lengths of line to eliminate pulsation and help meet the slope of the berm. When the valves were opened, new life entered the lagoon. The Army sent up a helicopter to check the system. Subsequent tests showed a marked difference in water quality, and this water will stay clean and blue indefinitely. Once again, Ramco met the challenge. The reason for over 500 successful installations in the United States and other countries is a unique submerged aeration system that combines the advantages of coarse bubble equipment with the high efficiency of fine bubble devices. The large openings in our diffuser, which permit these coarse bubbles, cut down on maintenance. But large bubbles transfer oxygen less efficiently than fine bubbles. The Ramco MAT Aerator overcomes this problem by discharging the coarse bubbles into counter-rotating turbines, which shear the bubbles to micro size. This process delivers the highest possible O2 transfer. Rising out of the aerator housing, the red plastic pellets, with the same specific gravity as sludge, show the forceful lifting power of the MAT Aerator. Substantial aeration also occurs in the surface boil created by the rising bubbles. The unequaled action of the MAT Aerator gives extremely high oxygen transfer, even at shallow depths. This unusual feature makes it feasible to install MAT units in existing lagoons, thus saving the high cost of reconstruction or deepening. For example, the Camp Pendleton Marine Corps Base in California. In 1973, the base was in serious trouble. At the San Onofre treatment plant, the primary lagoon had gone completely anaerobic, creating unacceptable odors and dumping high BOD waste into the secondary lagoon, violating both state and military requirements. Ramco installed 28 12-inch units and 2 small 10-horsepower blowers. In 30 days, anaerobic conditions were eliminated. Odors were gone. Laboratory tests confirmed a BOD reduction from 275 to 4, and all state and local regulations were met. But the troubles at Camp Pendleton were not over. A year later, 50,000 Vietnamese war refugees were housed in this hastily built tent city. The sewage treatment facilities were incapable of handling the overload. Waste matter floated on the surface. Methane and hydrogen sulfide gases permeated the air. In 15 days, Ramco solved the problem by installing 35 12-inch MAT units at 2 different treatment sites. We were able to speed up the job and keep the cost down by using a special wet installation method perfected by Ramco, so that the lagoon does not have to be dredged or drained. As the 12-inch units started to work, they pumped 2.4 million gallons per unit per day from the bottom of the lagoon to the surface. The result, 30 days later, blue-green water, meeting all the standards of the EPA and California's Water Quality Control Board. The system has been in operation since 1974 and still works perfectly. A letter from Camp Pendleton's maintenance officer to the state points out that they've been able to cut back on their total air supply and power consumption. Big Bear City, A community on top of a 7,000-foot mountain near San Bernardino, California, was suffering from an outmoded sewage disposal plant and called upon Ramco for help. Every 6 months, sludge like this would be moved from the primary lagoon to the secondary. And there it stayed, because under California Fish and Game rules, it could not be discharged into nearby Big Bear Lake. In 4 days, using our wet installation technique, we installed 75 8-inch units, which immediately started raising sludge from the bottom. This is the result 2 hours later. This is the result 1 week later. Reduced BOD, solids below 2020. And this is the result 4 years later. The MAT units that your company installed in 1975 have been used continuously since that date, and the related results have far surpassed our expectations. Louisville, Kentucky. Here's a sewage treatment plant that failed. 2 million gallons of effluent a day were being pumped out of this weir. Solid, raw sewage fed into a stream to find its way to a major river. Again, using our wet installation method, we dropped our aerators into the accumulation of sludge and started the cleanup work. 10 days later, the job was complete. 30 days later, clear water in the weir. And also in the chlorine contact chamber, the final step of the water treatment process. Before the installation of the MAT aerators, chlorine had no effect on this highly contaminated discharge. 22 months later, after no maintenance, the client reported the results of his inspection. He found that the 2 impellers were clean and free, and there was no wear on the impeller and stainless steel bolt. 2 systems in South Carolina, designed by CH2M Hill, Cypress Creek, and Garden City, where our units are operating in 5 feet of water, with wet or dry conditions, as in Paris, California. MAT units are easy to install. They're offered in a variety of sizes, configurations, and systems to meet almost any requirement. And some of these requirements have been tough. For example, the Ministry of the Environment at Ontario, Canada, asked Ramco and its competitors to prove our claims through controlled testing. Our competitors declined. Ramco welcomed the opportunity, furnished the equipment, and paid for the testing at a laboratory selected by the ministry. 5 DO meters were carefully monitored by the Winkler method. A watt meter on the blower was used to check the exact horsepower we were pulling. To test the mixing action, dye was poured between 2 aerators separated by 14 feet. The cloud of dye was pulled straight down, flowed into the aerators, and was rapidly pumped back to the surface, demonstrating the powerful circulating effect of the MAT units. These tests, conducted by the Ministry of the Environment, proved the superiority of MAT aerators, and as a result, we have installed over 200 systems in Canada. Here's a sewage treatment plant for 200 homes near Louisville, Kentucky. Ramco's system has been operating efficiently for 6 years, some of the time at sub-zero temperatures. Mr. John Lawson, the lagoon's developer, wrote Ramco that our lagoon functioned properly, while our package plant at another location was frozen solid. We are proceeding with the construction of another lagoon and will use your aerators. MAT units are ideal for such small subdivisions or campsites, schools, or any development not hooked up to a sewer system. One reason is they're inexpensive to install. For example, this shallow lagoon at Roy Rogers' Apple Valley Inn at Victorville, California. The cost of dredging was estimated at $30,000. To avoid this high cost, our engineers designed a system utilizing a sinkable cluster of 12 4-inch mat units. The cluster was constructed, placed in the desired location, then submerged. This innovative installation saved the customer over $50,000 and weeks or months of precious time. This lagoon handles raw sewage for the town of Harrison, Idaho. With 4 8-inch mat units in the primary and 1 in the center of the secondary, the system will accommodate 20,000 gallons of sewage every day, which can be distributed onto the fields for irrigation or simply discharged into Lake Coeur d'Alene. South Fork, Colorado, one of over 70 aeration systems in that state using Ramco equipment. Here we installed 85 8-inch units and 3 Suter-built blowers. The system has been in operation for nearly 7 years. This is the largest satellite tracking dome in the world, 210 feet across. Located at Fort Irwin, a major military training center in the barren desert of California. Fort Irwin had been experiencing severe wastewater difficulties, which were remedied with the installation of our equipment about 6 years ago. Since we got them out of trouble at Fort Irwin, the military has been a major Ramco client. Guadalajara, Mexico. Sergio Hernandez, senior and junior, both civil engineers, operate the largest construction company in their area. They installed the first mat system in Mexico. There are 5 lagoons here. The primary, with 12-inch mat units, 2 secondaries, with 8-inch mat units, and 2 additional ponds to be used as polishing lagoons. O2 energy comes from these blowers, which have been installed with proper ventilation both upwind and downwind. Very important for this type of blower. Here's another Ramco installation, this time in Chandler, Oklahoma. In this system, 2 blowers are operated on a steady basis, and 1 is used for standby. The mat units we installed replaced 2 50-horsepower surface aerators that were not doing the job. The Ramco system has been successfully working here at a very low cost since 1979. Another city that has benefited from Ramco's system is Mount Shasta, California. With the equipment previously used, there were continued back pressure problems, poor oxygen transfer, and insufficient aeration in this lagoon. Mr. Ned Boss, Director of Public Works, engaged CH2M Hill as consultants and made a comparative study of more than 20 treatment systems. Ned Boss states, "The purpose of our research was to select an air system that would provide the highest air transfer at the lowest initial rejuvenation cost. I think the utilization of the Ramco aeration system will provide these goals." Ramco did indeed meet these goals with the installation of mat units in both the primary and secondary ponds. And when these 2 blowers were added, the load on the treatment ponds was substantially increased, and at the same time, energy costs dropped way down. This is a pure oxygen wastewater treatment facility for Tulsa and Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, which turned out to be a nightmare for the plant operators. The consultants called us in to prescribe a remedy. We installed our aerators at the Hickey-Crete plant, which has a tremendous lagoon with baffles and a liner. Within 30 days, there was outstanding improvement. In this short period of time, the BOD removal was 50% better than had been expected. Avalon, on the island of Catalina off the coast of California. Here was a pumping station wet well giving off obnoxious odors that could no longer be tolerated. We eliminated the odors completely by installing mat units in the wet well to keep the sludge in suspension prior to being pumped up to this treatment plant. Chuck Billenook, superintendent of the city's water and wastewater department, expressed his gratitude in a letter to Ramco stating, "After putting the aerators into service, the odors and complaints have ceased and life became a bit more tolerable. But an additional problem required attention. The sewage treatment plant was failing. The ineffective surface aerators had caused a 3-foot buildup of sludge. We cleaned out 1.5 feet of sludge and lowered our deep draw units into the treatment tanks. They were installed with the air line 2 feet above the deck. The rest of the sludge did not have to be cleaned out because our aerators would pick it up and decompose it. After replacing their surface aerators with the Ramco system, the City of Avalon is saving over $40,000 a year in energy costs. This kind of operational economy is possible because of low power consumption and extremely high efficiency. Ramco's submerged aeration system offers unmatched versatility. MAT units are designed to meet virtually any municipal requirement: dry or wet installations, shallow ponds, or very deep basins. And there are countless industrial applications too: cleaning up fruit and tomato waste in Greece and Africa, sugar waste in Santa Ana, California, animal waste in Minnesota, photographic chemicals for the Air Force, bilge water on Terminal Island, California. The uses of MAT units are almost limitless, and most important, they are maintenance-free. They're constructed of strong, durable plastic and stainless steel, chemically resistant to 99% of all types of wastewaters. The piping system is built to avoid pulsation with the use of Ramflex, that curved section of flexible pipe to the right of the aerators, an exclusive Ramco product. MAT units provide constant and uniform pressure because the connectors which enter the diffusers are actually reducing tees. This method of avoiding pressure drop is unique with Ramco. Also unique with Ramco is this one-man dredge, which we call a sledge. The sledge, a combination of a sled and a powerful pump, can be pulled back and forth to clean up sludge on the bottom of a pond. All equipment offered can be shipped immediately from our large inventory. Ramco has a staff of top sanitary, civil, chemical, and petroleum engineers and marine biologists to help you with your problems, answer your questions, and assist with planning and design. We welcome your inquiry.